All right, today we're peeling back the curtain to look at the hidden forces that, well, bend the rules of our society. We're going to dive deep into the powerful and often invisible world of regulatory capture. You know, it's a feeling a lot of us have had. You see some huge crisis, a financial meltdown, an environmental disaster, and you just can't help but wonder, wasn't someone supposed to be preventing this? Why does it feel like the referees are playing for the other team? That's the exact question we're going to get into today. To really get our heads around this, we need a good metaphor. So think of government regulators as our public watchdogs. Their whole job is to stand guard, bark like crazy at any sign of danger, and protect all of us from harm. But what happens when that watchdog just stops barking?
And here you can see the two sides of the coin, right? On one side, you have the ideal, a strong, independent watchdog, totally focused on protecting the public. And on the other, you have the reality of capture. That same watchdog is now on a leash, serving the very industries it was created to oversee. This quote from our source material just nails it. It really crystallizes the entire concept. It's a total inversion of purpose. The group that's designed for oversight ends up taking orders. Just let that sink in for a second. It's a complete role reversal that happens quietly, behind the scenes.
So with that watchdog metaphor locked in our minds, let's put a formal definition on this thing. What exactly is regulatory capture?
And there it is. It's when those public agencies, our watchdogs, are, for all intents and purposes, co-opted. They start to prioritize the commercial goals or special interests of the industry they're supposed to be regulating, instead of the public they were made to protect. Now, this is a really crucial point. This isn't just about some lazy bureaucrats or things being inefficient. This is a much, much deeper problem. We're talking about a fundamental shift, a reorientation where the machinery of public governance is basically repurposed to serve and protect private capital. All right, so how does a watchdog actually get captured? I mean, it's not like a single event, right? It's a whole process that works through a few interconnected pathways. Let's break down the mechanics of how this really works. We're going to look at three main ways this happens: the flow of money, the movement of people, and the control of information. Each one is a super powerful tool for influencing and ultimately capturing a regulator. Let's start with the most straightforward one: money. No surprises there, right? Financial power is really the foundation of capture. From political donations to massive lobbying budgets, money buys access and influence, making sure that policy conversations are always tilted in favor of those with the deepest pockets. Wow, this is such a powerful phrase, influence laundering. It just perfectly describes how financial capital, cold, hard cash, is legally converted into political capital, access and favorable treatments. It creates what our source calls a transactional democracy, where policy can really start to feel like it's up for sale. Okay, let's move on to the second pathway and see how this all builds on itself. This one is all about people. We're talking about the revolving door, and that refers to the constant flow of people moving between government agencies and the private industries they regulate. Think about it. A person spends years regulating an industry, then they leave their government job for a super high-paying lobbying position in that exact same industry. Or you see the reverse. A top executive from a big company gets appointed to lead the agency that oversees their former company. This constant circular migration embeds the industry's culture, its logic, and its priorities right into the heart of our public institutions. So this final pathway is maybe the most subtle, but it's also one of the most powerful. It's not about money or people directly. It's about controlling knowledge and information itself. Look, industries often have incredibly specialized knowledge. So by funding research, sponsoring university programs, and just aggressive lobbying, they can frame the entire debate. Their expertise gets used to argue that what's good for their bottom line is also good for the public. And suddenly, expertise, which should be this neutral public tool, becomes an ideological weapon to justify weaker rules. So we've seen how it happens. But what are the real-world consequences? I mean, what's the actual price of a captured regulator? And maybe more importantly, who ends up footing the bill? So what does this capture look like in practice? Well, one of the most obvious results is just lax enforcement. The potential fines for breaking the rules can be huge, a real deterrent. But then you see the fines that are actually handed out. And when the penalty is just a tiny fraction of the potential fine, it stops being a punishment. It just becomes another line item on the budget, a predictable, manageable cost of doing business.
And the fallout from this is huge. Regulations get weakened or just aren't enforced, and that leads to very real risks for all of us. Think about the stability of our financial systems or the safety of our environment. But maybe the most corrosive effect of all is the erosion of public trust. It creates this deep sense of disillusionment, when it feels like the system is rigged while all the benefits and profits just keep flowing to the captured industry.
This brings us to a final and pretty sobering concept. See, capture isn't always a temporary thing. Over time, it can become this stable, self-perpetuating system.
Welcome to the zone of captured regulation. It's this equilibrium where the regulator and the industry exist in what the source calls symbiotic complicity. They actually benefit from each other. The whole system reinforces itself, and it becomes incredibly resistant to any real, meaningful reform. In this zone, governance itself is basically bought and sold.
The very idea of oversight gets turned on its head. The watcher is now being watched and managed by the very group it was meant to control. To put it simply, and this is a phrase from the source material that will really stick with you, oversight becomes oversighted. It's the ultimate institutional inversion.
And that leaves us with a really critical and maybe unsettling question. If the systems that are designed to protect the public interest are themselves captured, who's left to guard the guards? It's a question that goes right to the heart of public trust and governance. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer.